All right, all right, all right. It is that time again. Are you ready for some snark?
I am. I didn't know I was co-hosting this with Matthew McConaughey.
I well, I mean, that just it feels natural. I'm not gonna lie. It
I know.
feels it
I
feels natural.
I do that all the time. So
Um
I'm surprised I didn't do it actually.
just yeah, all right, all right, all right. Let's go. Let's do this, man. Let's like dive right in. I just slipped into Bill Clinton there at the end. I don't know what happened. All right, so with that, welcome to Zero to Traction, a podcast about how first-time founders create companies at scale. One of your regular co-hosts here coming at you, JDM, aka Josh David Miller. Other regular co-host, Cameron Law. Cameron, how you doing?
Doing wonderful. I'm excited for another episode here, and thank you to all you listeners for hopping on back, and look forward to another great discussion.
Yes, awesome. I am as well. And we are joined by our recurring co-host, the lovely Cass. Cass, we're just gonna have to trust is doing well today, as I'm not going to take the time to ask them at the moment. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Cass in real time as we see Cass, and you can see sort of the interactions there, not edited at all. And you can see as we do another little game here, we do another little game with Cass. You can see that it's all real. Cameron and I are reacting in real time based on a setup from Cast, which is my ChatGPT. And so, with that, we are doing an episode that we are calling "Go to Market or Go to Bed, Would You Please?" And in this particular episode, we're combining a few different kinds of questions that we've been getting a lot lately about go-to-market strategy, just kind of putting it in the form of a game where we are going to have Cass give us the summary of a go-to-market slide from a startup pitch deck. And then Cameron and I are going to react to it in real time. We're going to say what we like, what we don't like, and how we might be able to fix it. Now, we're coming without any context of this business. I imagine most of these are just little hallucinations from Cass. So I don't think we're looking at real startups anyway. So this is going to be well, I think in a lot of ways, probably actually, maybe I'm wrong about this, Cameron. I think it's probably going to be a bit more how we do this in the real world, because we're just
Right.
seeing a slide and being like, I don't understand your business. What's going on?
Yeah, so I would just wanted to speak to that point, and that's kind of why I did the like little virtual raise my hand here, because I think it dates back to one of our previous episodes, maybe about a month or two ago, where we talked about kind of the fundraising pyramid, and that oftentimes an investor or an audience is seeing a go-to-market slide, and you're getting feedback based on like I don't understand it, or it's less clear, or maybe you're just fully missing this go-to-market slide, and it's more focused on the performative aspect or the communication. But really what hopefully you gain from this episode is that like there's maybe just something fundamentally wrong with what your go-to-market strategy slide is conveying. And that's really maybe what the investor or the audience is really demonstrating to you is couched in a piece of feedback related to, a performance or how you're communicating it, but really this kind of fundamental mismatch of what your actual go-to-market strategy is based on what your business model is. So thanks for pointing that out earlier.
Yeah, well, we'll put a link to that other show in the show notes in case you want to go back and listen to that particular episode where we kind of broke that down into greater clarity. So with that, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Cass, let's go. All right, Cass says, welcome to Go to Market or Go to Bed, where slide decks come to die and dreams go to get investor grade therapy. Here's the first slide. So the slide title is Go to Market Strategy. Nothing too exciting there. Target audience, Gen Z professionals, side hustlers, remote teams, creators, small businesses, HR departments, nonprofits, and educators. Primary channels, TikTok, webinars, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, paid search, IRL events. Messaging, we help future forward teams thrive in a hybrid first world. Goal, achieve viral growth, organic buzz, and creator partnerships. And
There's a lot
Cass says
there.
this slide just tried to sell me a kombucha and then invited me to a Slack I'll never open.
All right.
I've been
Well,
there.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind here is just there's not a clear target audience. I think, part of like if I was to be more critical or like thinking through like the other side of it, of how might you make this more impactful as a go-to-market strategy in entirety, is like, what is the common patterns amongst these different audiences that you're identifying that maybe really actually elicits more towards who your actual like customer persona and early adopter is. And so when we think of a successful go-to-market strategy, and like what you convey on a slide is really who's that early adopter that you're targeting first, and how are you getting in front of them? So what's the main channel that they're actually searching for solutions related to the solution that you're offering in the market? And so, I think as you kind of go down this list of the target audiences, I think the channels probably map fairly nicely to those audiences, but overall is just too broad of a market. Like you're basically just taking a shotgun approach to, my go-to-market strategies. I'm doing all things to hopefully get in front of all people, I guess, versus being this really intentional way of wedging into the market and then growing within there. So those are my initial thoughts. What about you, JDM?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I'll go like even a step stronger here, that not one of these target audiences is specific enough,
Right.
let alone all of them, right? Like Gen Z professionals, that's just way too broad to target in any meaningful way. Creators, like Cameron and I here are creators, but so is Mr. Beast. So what are we talking about here? This is it's just none of this is specific enough, and that's going to be a problem anyway. You don't have a clear ideal customer persona laid out, so that's not going to work well for you. Additionally, like even if these were specific, there's just too many of them. And so like you don't have like a go-to-market strategy for a Gen Z professionals can be really different to an HR department. Like those are just completely different go-to-market strategies. So I don't even know how we go about talking about a go-to-market strategy, because this company doesn't have one. Instead, they just have channels where they want to chuck messages on, and that's not a go-to-market strategy. That's just a bonfire for your cash. Um,
So
as
yeah, I
far as
think
like,
like go for
go
it.
ahead.
I was
No.
just gonna, so I was going to that kind of the messaging where they say we help future forward teams thrive in a hybrid first world. So I think the like where I have a greater clarity of who the actual customer is like future forward teams. I think there's still a lot of work to do there, but at least you can kind of see some like firmographics related to this type of like company and like what they're trying to do. And then, within that, there's obviously like you're gonna have to go a bunch deeper to actually like identify who that core customer is. But I think maybe the commonality across some of those is trying to then identify those that are actually working in this hybrid space and that are thinking in this future forward planning element of it, right? And so then you're actually pulling across maybe more of these psychographics, so you can actually get to a more narrowed customer segment or customer persona. So I think ultimately it's all starts with like being more specific in who your customer is, and that will then create more greater clarity in your channels going forward.
Yeah, and the message, suffers from the same obvious problem. But the message is broad because the audiences are too broad, and that's because the founder knows that they can't use the same message on all of these audiences. So they just have a generic message that encompasses all of them. But the problem is, to market to everyone is to market to no one. So I don't think it's worth diving too much into the
I think their
messaging at this point.
go-to-market strategy is build it and they will come.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Cass, that was a train wreck. Let's do another. The last one had more personas than a Marvel multiverse and less focus than a toddler on Red Bull. That's
I feel like
accurate.
we're sometimes that toddler on our
True that. All right, here we go. Launch and growth plan. Target market tech-savvy millennial parents looking for simplicity in a complex world. Initial wedge will build out trust by sponsoring local parenting podcasts and running Instagram reels featuring emotionally resonant quotes about modern family life. Core conversion funnel. Step 1, see ads. Step 2, download free mindfulness checklist. 3, join an email drip series titled Less Stress, More You. 4, purchase annual subscription to the platform. The growth flywheel. Customers become brand ambassadors by sharing their journey to simplicity using our branded hashtag #parentflow. All right.
If you kick us off this go around.
Yeah, so I'll start with some positive things. That there's one target market which I like: tech-savvy millennial parents looking for simplicity in a complex world. That's probably good if there's meat behind it, right? So, what are the traits that make a parent looking for simplicity in a complex world? If we flesh that out a bit, I'm guessing that there could be a decent ICP behind this, behind the scenes there. So, I'm gonna give that a check mark as far as the go-to-market slide is concerned, assuming that somewhere else in the pitch that was fleshed out a little bit more. The initial wedge: build trust by sponsoring local parenting podcasts and running reels featuring emotionally resonant quotes about modern family life. I think that feels like that could work. But it's my challenge is that it feels more like awareness than acquisition,
Yeah.
right? Because we're
Okay.
talking about generic messages. Like, we're going to sponsor podcasts and do reels, and we're going to talk about modern family life, but not really focusing on whatever the pain is that this company is trying to solve, which is not addressed at all on this go-to-market slide, and that's fine, right? It's not a problem slide. But because the problem doesn't appear anywhere here, I'm curious about who you're actually going to get into this alleged flywheel. The conversion funnel itself is fine. Like, like as far as it goes, like there's nothing wrong with like, okay, we're going to use an ad to drive a lead magnet to get into a drip series that we're going to use to convert. Like, that's fine. Like, that's a playbook that works. It's really common in the creator space. The challenge though is that, is there like a mindfulness checklist, and it's a subscription to an annual platform? So how are those things actually related together? Is there a pain through line that we can do here? So like the tech savvy millennial parents looking for simplicity in a complex world, they're looking for a mindfulness checklist. Like, that feels like they're tech savvy looking for simplicity in a modern world. Like, I'm not sure that that is the right lead magnet there. But even assuming it was, can we get a problem through line, right? So that like they're opting into the problem, they're taking a small nibble at the solution through a lead magnet, and then we can use a drip campaign to upsell them into something bigger and more substantive, whatever the subscription platform is that solves their problem more directly. So like it's certainly better than the last one, but I don't have a lot of confidence in its success, because all of the tools are there, but then the tools are fine and they seem to be executed fine, but they're very disconnected from the startup itself, and I don't think that that's going to serve the company very well.
Yeah. I don't have a ton of additions there. I think similarly to what you said on kind of simplicity in a complex world, I think defining like tech savvy somewhere and like what evidence does that look like? And like, do you have some of that evidence earlier on, hopefully to demonstrate the ICP that you've spoken to? I thought definitely agree with the initial wedge was much more focused on like awareness versus like truly like speaking to a pain point and getting that acquisition to the main place where you're going to activate them into creating value going forward. I don't know if this one's just maybe a personal thing here, but the name of the title slide, like the launch and grow plan, I think just that, I don't know, just sticking to the basics of a go-to-market strategy or like what's expected. I think sometimes
Mhm.
those things just like a lot of what you need to recognize in particularly pitching is pattern recognition. And so you're already kind of throwing off the audience by like changing what's pretty straightforward as a go-to-market plan and how you're going to grow. So I don't think there's really a need to like get creative with launch and growth plan. I think it just kind of comes off not what you're actually trying to achieve. So that's just a personal thing for me. And I was thinking more about that than some of the mechanics. And I imagine that that could be similar for another audience.
Yeah, that's a good call. It rubbed me the wrong way too. And I'll say another thing here. So it says launch, right? Which means that this is an early stage startup. They have not launched yet. And launch and growth are not the same plan. They do not go together. When you're in the launch phase, you are absolutely not in the growth phase. You're not trying to figure out how to grow this thing. You're trying to figure out if this is a thing. And those are two very, very different things. So I just wanted to kind of toss that out there as well, that if you put this on there, not only did you break from the pattern, which, yes, Cameron, that's a pet peeve of mine, but you're also signaling that you don't really understand the startup process. So there's no good that comes from that. All right, let's get some further thoughts here. I just threw those thoughts at Cass, and Cass is coming back with a recap. Awareness is not acquisition. You're not a movement yet. You're an hypothesis with a Squarespace account. Which that's accurate. That's not a bad place to be in, just like getting awareness of your hypothesis is not great. Yeah, Cass, let's give us another one. Let's do it. What you got? It says we are gluttons for go-to-market punishment, and he's not wrong. It's Cameron and I signed up for our careers. This is where we ended up, polisharians. All right.
We should be on the dirtiest jobs.
We should be on the dirtiest job sometimes for the pitch deck we've gone through.
Instead of Mythbusters and Ted Lasso.
There should have been dirty jobs.
I'll make one of those for everyone. That'll be our next.
All right, guys. You heard Cameron. So like, if you're not following the Traction Lab or Zero to Traction on LinkedIn, get on there because Cameron's got some more AI fun coming our way. All right, here's our third one. Early go-to-market strategy, pre-seed to seed, ideal customer profile, operations managers in mid-sized logistics companies struggling with inefficiencies in their dispatch workflows. Key assumption, they're actively looking for software to improve internal communication, reduce delivery delays. Acquisition strategy, cold outreach on LinkedIn and email, sponsor industry newsletters and podcasts, attend regional supply chain trade shows. Messaging, we help logistics teams work smarter, not harder, with modern dispatch software that just works. All right, Cameron, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I guess like the first thing, similarly to the last one, I would just be more specific of just go-to-market strategy. I think pre-seed to seed, I guess you're trying to tie in the round, but I don't know, just again is something that just makes me think more about like trying to be too cute with it versus just it's a go-to-market strategy. And then, so I think, I like some of the specificity here of like the ideal customer profile. So I think, one, if they've identified the person within the company, they identified that it's a mid-sized logistics company. So that's narrowed it down and kind of really specific related to that. Some of the key assumptions, I think we're pretty clear. From a acquisition strategy, I think the gap for me was like the initial outreach versus like then like what's kind of the path after that. So that's great. You're doing cold outreach, which can be challenging, particularly on LinkedIn and email. But like, is that like driving to demos, or what's kind of the strategy after that point of it? So once you get kind of that acquisition, how do you start to then activate them in the process? But for a top of funnel of acquisition, which is really what they're speaking to, is key. But I think hopefully then I identifying what that kind of next step in that process would be to actually convert them is kind of where my mind would go. So, but yeah, I think those are good top of the funnel, obviously, as an acquisition strategy going forward.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. To start with the positives, I do like the call out of the assumption, right? I think that's great. And pre-seed to seed, I think is also overselling where it sounds like we are in the startup right now. That sounds more like idea to pre-seed as opposed to pre-seed to seed. But otherwise, that part's it's good. You got a customer profile. It's got some focus. The assumption, that's great. That's awesome. We're focusing on a problem of internal communications and delivery delays. So that's great. As far as outreach strategy, it's just like, I think it's a little milquetoast. If I'm being honest, like it's fine, but it's a bit milquetoast. Like, and you could take this acquisition strategy and put it on any B2B slide deck, and it would be like fine. So I don't think that doesn't make it wrong. It just like, I need to know more about this. I need to know why cold outreach on LinkedIn and email makes sense. Like if there's, for some reason you have access to this great email list of operations managers, then that becomes interesting to me. Otherwise, I'm wondering how you're going to acquire it. Is this just generic, like you hire one of those little firms that do the email scraping and all that stuff to send cold emails for you? Like at that point, I find this just just not very interesting at all. And then LinkedIn again, why is that the right platform? Industry newsletters and podcasts, like why is that going to work? Like newsletters and podcasts are so top of funnel, and podcast is going to lean a lot harder into awareness than it is into acquisition, even though it can do both. Industry newsletters, depending on whether they're digital or physical, could be fine. Like, and same thing with like trade shows. Trade shows can be great, but like trade shows are a channel and not a strategy. And so like, what is this strategy for the trade shows? In fact, like Cameron, you and I were just doing a design sprint recently with, one of the Traction Lab portfolio companies, where they were trying to level up the trade show game and figure out how do we make trade shows into a broader strategy. And he came with an hypothesis of like, if we do this, I think this will work. And so we spent a lot of time fleshing out what that might look like. But it's just a channel. And if you don't do anything with the channel, if you just if you just walk into a trade show, this is going to fall flat on its face. You're not going to get any sales. So like, What is it that you're actually doing at a trade show? And why is it that you think that that's going to be a good point for this? As an example, I could see that like at a logistics, like supply chain trade show, it might be perfectly in line with the culture of such an event for a SaaS tool to be, having a booth there, but it might not be. They might be focused on something completely different, and it just might be weird or out of place, which is fine, right? Like then you're a big fish in a small pond, but the challenge is that the culture doesn't line up, and it's going to feel weird to have you there. So there's just a lot of stuff to consider in here. And so again, I think it's just milquetoast. It's just a little banal. It's a little boring to me. I just think it's too generic.
Yeah. So I think, part of it, right, is, if it's like, what are you visually seeing on a slide versus what's obviously shared? I think one of the things that stood out to me was kind of on the interesting part of the sponsor industry newsletters and podcasts. I think, again, it's a little bland, but part of that is like for some of these industries, like having a partnership with them is like a sign of credibility. So it was like having that connection. It's coming from a reputable and credible source. And so it like builds not awareness, but it builds that like brand association with something that's always driven kind of value for that particular industry. And so sometimes that pay to play in that sense of it can be really helpful.
Couldn't agree more.
I have to ask, what is milk toast? I don't know what milk toast is. And I wouldn't have spelled it that way. I would have spelled it MILK toast.
I know, because they sound like two foods, right? But it's milk toast is French. So it's it's not, but that's where its origin is. It means banal, plain, vanilla, that kind of thing.
So if I wanted just plain toast, I'd say I want milk toast.
I don't think that. I think at that point you're gonna get. Well, I was gonna say you're gonna get something weird, but in fact, an English muffin is milk toast because MILK, because an English muffin is made with milk. So that is milk toast.
Very good.
Fun. There's my frivolous thought. Cass says he agrees. They agree. It's not bad. It's just bland. And I think with that, we're heading toward the end of our time here today. Probably best to switch over into some frivolous thoughts. I'll try to come up with something better than an English muffin. But in the meantime, Cass, what's your frivolous thought for today? Got something pop culture? Let's see what Cass is going to bring to the table today. I'm just deciding to ask them about pop culture because I the last ones were the frivolity was fine. It was just a way out in left field. All right. Let's wrap this. This is what Cass is cast. Let's wrap this funnel roasting fever dream with some utterly non-strategic and deeply pop culture. If the Fast and Furious franchise can go from DVD player heists to launching a Pontiac Fiero into space, then your startup pivot is probably fine. I mean, like,
there's hope. There's hope.
This is like the lesson here is this will be my my frivolous thought for today is right inspired from this. So one of my big challenges with TV shows, with movie franchises, is that they don't know when to walk off stage. They don't know when to call it quits, and they run for too long. And the Fast and Furious aren't really my kind of movies anyway, because my wife is a fan. I've seen them all. And so I get this on a deep level. How completely absurd that this is. But it's supposed to be absurd. I get that. It's tongue in cheek. I get all of that. But the problem with that franchise is they keep doubling down and getting bigger and bigger and bigger in every movie, because the whole point is the spectacle. And so you can't just give the same spectacle. You have to double down every single time. And so TV shows get really, really bad at this. And then the plots get bigger and the conspiracy gets larger and more involved. And it just kind of goes on and on and on and on. I think Lost, the TV show, had this problem too. It's a really common show. But there are examples where it does like work. One, it would be like Mission Impossible. Those movies where that up. Yeah.
We were chatting about that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, we were because we're talking about how crazy Tom Cruise is in a way that I love. But like the movies do keep doubling down and tripling down on one aspect of it, not on the stakes, because the stakes, aside from the first one, the stakes have always been pretty large. Even in the first one, they were large, just not global. And but they keep living up the stunts, but they still keep this. This is the same core of it, right? It's this impossible mission that we're going to send Tom Cruise on, and they make the spectacle bigger, but they don't make the story bigger, which is much more interesting. As far as I'm concerned, it tends to work a bit better, which is why those movies also rate really well. But my favorite example of this not happening is the TV show Seinfeld, because in the 90s, when Seinfeld was at the height of its popularity, when it went off the air, it was at the height of its popularity. The cast was each making like millions per episode. Like, it was ridiculous. Like this was just like this show was on fire. It was top of the ratings. That it was just absolutely just crushing it. And then they canceled it. Then they stopped. And the part of the reason for that, as Jerry Seinfeld talks about it now, is just that they knew that like it wasn't going to get any more popular, and all that can come after that is something downhill. At some point, people are going to get tired of it. And instead, if you leave them wanting more, which was actually funny enough, one of the like little plot points for George Costanza was leaving them wanting more. But like if you leave them wanting more, then it can stay enduring. And so Seinfeld is popular to this day, and still this big cult classic, and still popular because it never had that downswing. Whereas TV shows that eventually have that downswing, I think it's very difficult for them to do that. So I don't have a startup lesson in there for that. That's just my pop culture biz. Don't squeeze every last nickel out of your intellectual property, Hollywood. It pisses me off.
Well, I guess I would take I was trying to draw a connection, but like I have the Sacramento Kings saga, and you were talking about, the downward, where there's, if you've just been down in the dumps, the only way is up. And so to have, those diehard fans that have been supporting through the challenging times, they're just waiting for that uphill climb to success. And so we made it into the play-in game. So that's been top of mind, and they play that first play-in game this coming Wednesday. So excited to see that, journey continue, and hopefully share that they're on to the official playoff round to take on the Thunder. That would be an ideal case. So we will see. We'll be sure to report back, next week.
Light the beam.
Light the beam.
And with that, we are at the end of our time here together. Time is the one resource that we can never get back. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of that with us here today. I had a great time shooting the shit with Cass on go-to-market. Those of you know me, go-to-market's a big deal to me. Go-to-market strategy is one of my biggest pet peeves that I constantly harp startups about. And so getting a chance to talk about it in a real context was a lot of fun. Cameron, I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too.
Did you have as much fun with me or with Cass? I don't know.
Just Cass. That's
what it seemed. It's okay. It's okay. I'll take it.
Your participation was milquetoast at best.
Okay, thank you. I concur.
Pretty soon we just can replace both of us with AI agents, and then we can just bow out of the podcast entirely.
There we go. We'll see. We might do better.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
tragic. But no, in all seriousness, always a great time. In fact, Cameron, you and I will be back together on Friday in
Yes.
person at Connect Labs at Aggie Square, which is a biotech facility and laboratory space. It's pretty epic space. It's only soft opened. It hasn't had its official launch, which is not until next month. But we're going to be there. You should come by if you're in the Sacramento area. Come by, hang out with us. We're going to have some live office hours.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing your pressing questions. So come join us.
Let's do it. And with that, be sure to like, share, subscribe wherever you like, share, and subscribe, or tell a friend about it. Podcasts grow by word of mouth, and we appreciate it. And that's all I got. Cameron, you got anything?
Nope. Thanks for listening, and we'll be in your ear next week.
Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.